Let's start. First of all, let me tell you briefly about our ZICOlaw, just briefly only. We see ourselves as asset insiders, and we are an asset law firm, and we provide full legal service, covering the area like banking and finance, corporate and commercial, and of course, real estate as well. And we have office in each country, and we do have local lawyers in each office. Okay. And other than the legal service, we also provide non-legal service as well, which would cover advisory, trust advisory, Sharia advisory, corporate finance and capital markets, and other services. So before we starting to go into details of today's presentation, let me give you the overview of the presentation first. Okay. First of all, I will talk about foreign, because the topic is for the foreigner to invest in Thailand, right? So first we must be able to identify first what are definition of foreign under the land code under Thai law, because being foreign and not being a foreigner maybe there are some difference, because foreigners, they will have some limitations in investing in properties in Thailand. Okay. And after that, the property that we're gonna talk about today, I will talk about the land ownership and land lease. And also we will move on to condominium units. Mm-hmm. And after that, I will talk a little bit about the process to how to perfect the transaction. And also I will briefly discuss with you about another way of how to invest in the property indirectly. We are a company that is set up. So instead of buying or purchasing the property, you would buy the shares in the company instead. And then I will cover a little bit about lease agreement. And after that, my presentation, the last topic, we will talk about tax considerations. So let's move forward. Okay. For foreign ownership, we can roughly divide the investor into two groups. The first one is the individual investor, and another one is corporate investor, like a limited company. For individuals, it is quite obvious that if you have no Thai nationality, you will be deemed as foreigner. And when you consider investing in Thailand, then there will be some limitations or restrictions that you need to consider. Mm-hmm. What about a company that is incorporated abroad, outside Thailand? Of course, definitely, it will be deemed as foreign under the law too. But there is also certain part that is a little bit tricky. Let's say if you would like to, invest in the property in Thailand, but you wanna do it by yourself or by a Singaporean company. Instead, you would like to set up a company in Thailand and then use that company to invest in the property. Will that company be deemed as a foreigner? Does any of you have the idea about this before? Anyone can share if you have some knowledge about how we determine? No? So I'm gonna explain to you. Okay? Although the company is set up under Thai law, registered under Thai law, located within Thailand, there might be the chance that the company that is set up could be considered as foreign, which I set out in this slide the criteria that you can consider. If it falls under any one of these two criteria, then the company could be deemed as foreign. Mm-hmm. The first criteria is that if more than 49% of the shares capital in the company is held by a foreigner, like for example, Singaporean citizen or a company that is deemed as a foreigner, then the company will be deemed as foreign. And when the company would like to invest in the property, then they will need to think about certain restrictions. Not only the shares proportion that the government used to consider about this issue, they also look at numbers of foreign shareholders as well. If more than half of the shareholders are foreigners, then the company will be deemed as foreign. Any questions so far? No. Okay. So now we know already under the land code how to identify whether you or your company or the corporate entity that you would like to have it invested in the property is considered as foreign or not. So then let's move on to the next slide. In this slide, I'm gonna talk about land ownership. Generally in Thailand, foreigners are prohibited to own the land. However, there are certain exemptions that are given by the government. But mostly the exemption will be for industrial purpose. Let me highlight it on this for industrial purpose. If you would like to, look for the place to stay in Thailand, then this would not be counted. If there is a company, whether a foreign or a Thai company that you set up, and then you would like to have that company run the business in Thailand, and maybe you will have a question if the company can, buy the land just to incorporate the office, and on the other way around, when the company sell those land, the company may also make profits from the property as well, which the exemption may be given if the business that run by the company falls under the business activities that are promoted by the Board of Investment, or we call it a BOI. Because if the company is promoted, if that business is promoted, then the company can enjoy the privilege to own the land which is given by the Board of Investment. However, there are quite a lot of criteria to be met, and the process take quite for a certain of time, and we need to consult with the BOI official as well. Other than to get the privilege to own the land under the Board of Investment, if a company is located within the zone that is determined by the Industry Estate Authority of Thailand, or IEAT, similarly, the company may also get privilege to own the land as well. And these are the exemptions that the government given to the investor that wish to invest in Thailand. What about for residential purpose? Or let me ask you, what is the purpose of I think everybody here is interested to invest in the property in Bangkok, right? So you will come and then listen to the presentation today. But for which purpose, like for to start a business, or just like to buy a piece of land and then sell and then to make a profit? Okay, I guess maybe it's not for the purpose of like industrial purpose, like to set up a business and then run a business. But for my second bullet point, this is with regard to the residential purpose. But I think the permission, actually it could be given, but it could be given very strictly. And there are certain criteria that also need to be met under the land code. But the criteria that you need to take into your consideration is that you need to bring in certain amount of money of at least 40 million baht into the country. before you will be eligible for apply for the permission from the government. And I think that is quite a lot of money as well. So you can see that if you wish to have a freehold over the land in Thailand, it can be very difficult to own a piece of land. So in this slide, I'm gonna talk to you about the process at the land office. Okay, it's about the registration. But before you commit to buy or purchase the property from a seller, I think this is also relates to your concern as well, because we recommend that you have someone to conduct the search at the land office first. For example, for condominium unit, if it is already reached the quota of 49%, or for the land, maybe a copy of the title deed that the seller gave to you, maybe it is not up to date, and it turns out at the end of the day that the seller is not the actual owner of the property, then it will be waste time and useless to enter into the transaction with that seller. And also, other than ownership, why we recommend you to do the search over the property? Because maybe the seller or the property hosted as security to financial institution like the bank, maybe the condominium units or the piece of land, it is mortgaged to the bank, and that would be one of the legal risks that you need to take into consideration. Because let's say if the property is posted as securities to the bank, and then so the ownership is transferred to you already, but it is still deemed as securities, and one day you may file or receive a court order that they need to sell this property in order that to have the proceeds for the repayment for the debt to the creditors. So it is better to be aware and then do the search first. Other than that, I also recommend you to, when you discuss with the seller about the terms of the purchase, and I think it is better that you put it in writing. And in this picture, we will call the document as agreement to sell and purchase. In this document, it will set out the property that you wish to buy, a deposit that maybe the seller require from you, and what is the payment terms that the seller would like you to pay to him. Is it acceptable for you? And also what happens if there is late payment? Are there any interest that will be charged on you? And after you enter into the agreement to sell and purchase agreement, and then in this agreement, there will be a date that the parties will agree to go to the land office and then perfect the transaction. Okay, and that leads to the third bullet point, registering ownership. In to the document that need to be prepared for the registration process is quite a lot of documents, and the documents, all of them must be made in Thai language, or in case that the document is in English, it will need translation, which it will have to be certified also by the translator. And for the document that is a foreign document, like signed outside of Thailand, then it will require notarization and legalization. But you don't have to worry about these two processes, because normally, for example, a law firm, they can provide you with this service. And I believe if you contact with an agency that they always do these transactions, they can recommend you how to get the document notarized and then legalized, so that they are acceptable to the authority. And actually, it's quite stress as well when you go to the land office, because they are very strict, and sometimes I think there are many people that, they try to perfect the transaction at the land office, and then it turns out that they got rejected, and then they need to, like go back and then figure out the document and then make it right, and then go there again. And as you can see from the last bullet point, that the process could take like, half a day to up to 1 day. So it is like, such a very long time. And of course, you don't want to like waste that certain amount of time for nothing. So it is better to make sure that the document is prepared correctly. Mm-hmm. Since the process is quite, very difficult and is quite stressful for the investment in a project or in a quite a big value. Maybe you can consider, instead of purchasing the property itself, the other way around, that from my experience, some of the clients, they, they use this structure instead. The seller, which is the current owner of the asset, right? They will set up the company, and then the company holds the asset. And when the seller would like to sell the asset, then instead of selling the property, the shares in the company will be sold to the purchaser. And using this structure, it is much easier because you don't have to attend the land office, and much less document that are required to be prepared. And those documents are like, simple corporate document, like share transfer instrument and share certificate. And you just need to, update the list of shareholders, and then file to the government official, which they don't check very strictly like the land office do. And also the cost that will derive from the transaction, there will be a stamp duty for 1 baht for every 1,000 baht, which I think it doesn't consider that much as well. As you can see, that freehold on land, it's very hard to that you can be given the permission. So maybe you can consider, what if you can, consider, instead of having the freehold, like you have the leasehold property instead. But I recommend that you enter into the lease agreement only for residential purpose, because if you take out the lease over the property, and then you would like to, lease out, and then have the rental fee for, like, the passive income, then it will be a little bit tricky, because to rent out the property, you may need to have another license. We call it foreign business license, because the business, it falls under the business activities that the government restricted, that foreigners are not allowed to do before obtain the license. Mm-hmm. And actually, the foreigners, they can enter into lease agreement freely, and there is no approval that you need to seek. But if the term of the lease is more than 3 years, then registration at the land office will be required as well. And the term of the lease could be like up to 30 years maximum. And you can also set a specific clause in the agreement that okay, you as a purchaser, you have the option to renew the lease agreement. And the lease registration fee will cost 1% of the rental payable over the lease term. And for foreign business license, I already talked about it. Okay, for the last issue, we will discuss about tax consideration. Our government, our tax system, we treat for the land ownership, we treat local and foreigners equally. We are the taxed equal, like same amount. Okay, and to enter into the transaction, the transfer fee will derive from the transaction, and it costs at 2% from the appraised value of the land, which the land office, they will have the average value of the land over the country. And in case that the seller holds the property less than 5 years, then a specific business tax will also be imposed because they consider that the seller purchased the land and then holds it like for less than 5 years. Maybe it is because of an investment. So they impose specific business tax, and the rate is at 3.3%. But if in case that the seller holds the property longer than 5 years already, then a specific business tax will not be required, but instead a stamp duty of 0.5% will be applied instead. And another type of tax that will incur is a withholding tax, which actually withholding tax is a part of individual income tax, but it is paid at the land office at that time already by withheld from the payment that is made by the purchaser. But normally, behind the scene, normally the parties will agree which party will buy all the fee and the tax that incur, and it depends on the bargaining power of the seller and the purchaser as well. And the rate of the tax for corporate entity like a company and the individual is different, because for a corporate entity it would be like for 1% of the average value, but for the individual they apply the progressive rate. But there will be a deduction for expense, which will vary, depends on depends on the term that the seller holds the asset. And I put on this table just to give you the figure of the deduction that is allowed. You can notice that the longer the seller holds the property, then the less expenses can be deducted. And I also put in the personal income tax rate, the progressive rate, so you can see it clearly. And in this slide, I raised just one simple sample, like a sale and purchase agreement for a value of 1 million baht only. Right? And in this sample, the seller holds the asset for 2 years. So the deduction that will be applied is 84%, and then we have the figure after the deduction of 160,000. And then this figure need to be divided by number of years. So we will have 80,000, and then we will calculate the tax based on the yearly figure, which for 80,000, then it falls under the 5% tax rate. And so we have 4,000, and then 4,000 will be multiplied by the numbers of years again. So the figure of the withholding tax in this case will be 8,000 baht. However, I think for the agency, they will have persons to assist you and then give you also advice about the number of or the amount of the withholding tax that will be applied as well. And that's all for my presentation. I think overall it can give you an initial understanding or idea of what you need to take into consideration in investing in property in Thailand. Okay. Thank you.